Hi there, my name is Karen Holton, and I'm one of the presenters at the upcoming Forbidden Knowledge NewsCon, which will be running from May 28th to the 31st, 2020. I am going to be presenting between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Sunday, May 31st. But I encourage you to come to the whole program because it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating information. My presentation will be about the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. I'll be telling you a little bit about my history, a little bit about the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. How did it get started? How does it operate? Who participates? Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about what to expect, because you, believe it or not, can also be involved. There is some qualifying, and I'll get into all of that during the presentation. More than that, though, I'll be talking about our intergalactic brothers and sisters. What do they look like? What do they eat? How do we communicate? And how do we get along? What are our intentions? So much information.
All right, now to our next presenter. We have Karen Holton. She is an experiencer, educator, channel guide, well-being and ascension coaching, counseling, creating and implementing workshops, lectures, self-help sessions, and consciousness-raising social events. As a contactee, she downloads and instructions to pass on to our human family. She serves as an exopolitical ambassador and experiences much personal contact within the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. Her presentation today is the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. What is it, what to expect, and how to prepare. Karen, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We're all looking forward to hearing this today. We've had an amazing conference so far, and it's on par to be just as amazing as we go on. So, Karen, I've enjoyed all our talks that we've had. Every time you come on, you give out fascinating information and information that no one's ever heard before, more importantly. So we're all looking forward to this. Before we go ahead with your presentation, why don't you share? Are you doing a screen share today?
Yes, I am. And okay. I just want to tell everybody that I'm going to be sticking to the script. And so there's a slideshow and all the words are there so that if the audio cuts out, people can still follow along. And it's to keep me organized because I love to go down my rabbit holes. And I don't want to miss out on giving any of this information to the viewers. So.
All right. Well, very good. So if you could just go ahead and share your screen just to make sure everything's working. We had a few presenters that had trouble getting their presentations up, so we want to make sure yours will work. All right.
Sorry about that.
There we go. No worries. No worries. I'm glad we got it up. I can see your screen now perfectly. All right.
Okay. Wonderful.
So if you have everything good on your end, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, Karen Holton.
Thank you. And thank you, Chris, for including me. And thank you, everybody, for coming out today. So my talk today is on the Intergalactic Resettlement Program, and it's presented by myself, Karen Holton. And I'm going to start with an introduction. I want to give you some back information about me because it will put everything into a sharper contrast. So in my introduction, my name, of course, is Karen Holton, and I'm here today to tell you about my paranormal experiences and to introduce you to the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. Now, the images are provided by Marco Antonio Calli, and he's also known as Vera Offworlds on Facebook. And they're provided for illustration purposes only, but they don't reflect my actual experience. So when you see the images, they don't really reflect what I'm talking about, but they add a little bit of spice to the presentation. And I really appreciate Marco for letting me use his images. So in 2017, my guides told me that it was time to come out of the closet and make public my experiences and knowledge about the intergalactic resettlement without any hypnosis or regression therapy. They emerged slowly as I became more public with my experiences, but I do not have full recall. I just remember what I remember. I didn't learn about this phenomena from research or books. I have fairly profound reading comprehension issues, so I have read very few science fiction novels. I only know my own experience, and this is not based on anybody else's work. I do not represent the beings from the Intergalactic Resettlement Program in any way, and I am not their spokesperson, and I am not their grand poobah. I only speak to what I know and experience. And many of us have these experiences, but most people do not remember. Further, I do not have language for all of my experiences, but I've chosen best as I can to relate my experiences, concepts, etc. in common English. I have been encouraged to provide information so that people can make up their own minds about the options they may choose from for dealing with future world events. The Intergalactic Resettlement Program may become an option when our physical planet is in crisis or when it's transitioning and it is not safe to live here anymore. I am not part of any Earth-based group, religion, or philosophy, and I'm not part of the secret space program. There is nothing to be afraid of because these are absolutely benevolent beings. They have a do no harm mandate, and they don't interfere with human free will. They may become involved when we ask for help and prove that we're serious by altering our lifestyle and thinking so that we can hold sufficient frequency for contact. When the student is ready, the master appears. Depending on how ready we are, how open-minded we are, etc., then appropriate contact can begin. I do not know species or racial names, planet names, or group names, and my ET friends are not from any specific star system. This is an unorganized, frequency-based movement, and when we're ready, contact commences. On Earth, there are millions of us who share in this work, and I was delighted to find out that I am not alone and that my experiences are not unique. So after I came out, I was looking on YouTube to find other people like me, and I stumbled across a couple of YouTube videos. One of them was by a hypnotherapist out of Oregon, and all of her clients have similar to my experiences and different phases of projects that have to do with intergalactic resettlement. And I was so happy because I realized we're a lot further along than we think we are. So now I need to talk about something that y'all should do some research on and keep in mind. It is the policy of this ET group to wipe our memories before we return so that we can remain embedded into the Earth social and political construct for soul development. Even today, many humans have their rights violated as they are diagnosed with mental illness labels and when they go public with their ET experiences. In the 1980s, the medical industry switched from physical lobotomies to chemical, and this practice is one of the things that has held back the spiritual and intergalactic progress of our species. Now, according to NRP.org, about 50,000 people received lobotomies in the United States. There are other reports that the number is much higher. But according to this report, about 10,000 of these procedures were transorbital lobotomies, and the rest were mostly prefrontal lobotomies. A man by the name of Walter Freeman performed about 3,500 lobotomies during his career, of which about 2,500 were his ice pick procedure. And then in the 1980s, they replaced this procedure with antipsychotic drugs and other pharmaceuticals. ET contact is still considered extreme mental deviance, and so disclosure is often met with stigma, ridicule, and psychotropic medications, which cause chemical lobotomization. So I wanted you to know that is a huge factor in. So I'll move on now to Karen's paranormal history and background. And I'll start with my intergenerational contact. My grandmother became a healer midwife. My mother was an alternative healer and was psychic. And then there's me. And I experience clairaudience, precognitive memory, other psychic abilities, angelic and ET contact. I believe my maternal grandmother was altered on a genetic level so that she could maintain ET contact. Grandma was raised as a child in an isolated logging camp in eastern Canada, where she made friends with invisible beings. She would come back from playing in the woods and tell everyone about her friends. She maintained a close connection with these beings throughout her life, to the point where she had little use for humans outside of her immediate family. My mother was either changed genetically or carried the altered genes from her mother. My mother had advanced psychic skills, ways of knowing, and healing. She used these skills as an alternative healing practitioner, and she helped very many people. Mom didn't even charge money. She would take donations if people brought them, but she never said no to helping people. I believe that Grandma was changed, which made the successive generations easier to contact. I also have a niece who is very in tune with ETs since childhood. Now, on the other side, my birth father was an unusual person and possibly had ET contact. After he was divorced by my mother, he built a tiny sailboat by hand and set off to sail around the world. And he didn't even use charts. He just had a connection. He was lost off the coast of Japan in the Dragon's Triangle, and no trace of him or his ship were ever found. Just as a side note, yesterday I asked Dean in his presentation if he knew what happened to my father, and he said, yeah, there was a big typhoon and the boat capsized and he was drowned. But it was interesting that Dean said, does she want to know if he had ET contact? And that wasn't even a part of my question. So I think on some level it's possible that my dad was involved with ETs and possibly even after his demise. I believe that I have the genetics for ET contact, and this multi-generational component made me a good candidate. I may also be a hybrid being. Some of us are ordinary people who have extraordinary experiences. I believe we all share the potential for ET contact. I do not think contactees are special. We have some genetics that have been altered, and many of us have experienced trauma, which gives us the ability to dissociate, and it causes changes to the brain's receiver wavelength, and we become very good receivers. Experiences that prepared me for advanced ET contact. When my mother was pregnant with me, she took a drug called thalidomide, which caused significant birth defects. Miraculously, I have my arms and my legs, but I definitely sense that there's something different about me as a result. Then I experienced periods of isolation and trauma, which allowed me to develop my gifts. At only 3 months of age, I developed both spinal meningitis and polio, which led to 6 weeks of isolation in hospital with almost no contact with my mother. This was my opening up point to universal consciousness in order to survive. At age 4, my younger brother and I spent 6 months in a very abusive foster home, followed by my mother's remarriage to a sadistic stepfather. This resulted in much stress throughout my childhood. When I was 15 years old, my parents moved to another province without me. And since I could not provide for myself yet and did not have any adult skills, I was preyed upon and severely abused. This resulted in further significant trauma. Now, these traumatic experiences allowed me to dissociate to a place where I was able to make interdimensional contact. Trauma causes us to become innocent like children. We have no energy for resistance. This sometimes leads to benevolent, unseen forces that come in to assist us. Working through trauma is what has elevated me. Every trauma becomes a blessing as we heal. and we become outstanding empaths. I learned that my experiences provide the perfect fertile soil for me to bring in my own inner resources. We go inside in order to go outside. We are fractal holograms. We are perceived as a part, but we carry the whole. We can access anything and everything by going within. Childhood contact. My paranormal experiences started when I was a child. I always liked to be alone, and I had my own reality where I felt connected. This led to my communicating with bugs and animals, and I was open to contact with other realms. I've always had my spiritual guides, and we communicate without words. I don't see them, but they are always with me. And also, I have always experienced significant periods of missing time. As a child, I received loving support in the form of lucid dreams and spontaneous knowing. But whenever I tried to tell my mom or my family about it, they told me that I had an overactive imagination and I shouldn't be talking about it. They were concerned that if I talked like that, it would somehow tarnish the family and people would think that I was crazy. There's that crazy thing again. I also had some special abilities, but my family told me they were not real and I should stop talking about it. So I stuffed most of my experiences down deep. And since I was spiritually minded, I joined various religions, but they always taught me that this type of experience was from demons, and I was strongly discouraged from ever talking about it. Later, when I was in my late teens, around 1975, I had an experience with my younger brother, Dan. We were both receiving ET communications while we slept. These communications were remembered as vivid dreams. Dan and I shared the same experience. We were invited to join off-world beings on a physical spaceship to another world. I was not talking about this because I thought I was imagining it. But the next time I saw Dan, he confessed that he was also having the very same invitation and experience. We decided to go, but the night we were supposed to leave, we both received vivid dreams that we should not go because something was wrong with the situation. The next day, Dan told me that there was a terrible accident and some of our off-world friends were killed. And this is all I know. I kept listening for contact back then, but there was only silence for a number of years. Adult contact. Once I was in my 20s, I joined fundamentalist religion, got married, had babies, and attempted a normal life. I was looking for truth everywhere but within. I saw so much hypocrisy. Due to stigma and ignorance, it was not safe for me to tell the truth about my experiences. I even got confused as to whether I was imagining things as I embedded myself into a fundamentalist religion that taught this was the work of the devil. I actually developed significant health issues from keeping this part of me suppressed. After I left religion in the 1990s, I realized that there was so much supportive evidence that there was no way that I could have imagined it all. And this led to a personal crisis. At the same time, I was imprinted by the spirit of a man who had killed himself while living in the house I was now renting. I was about to off myself, and this led to my angelic experience, which changed my life forever. I had what I call an explosive vision of angels. One voice sounded as 1,000 voices all at once. Gabriel the archangel came to me and really woke me up. It was then that I realized that we have tremendous value, and this is why angels are so interested in us. We are deeply loved and cherished. I learned that the angelic realms love us unconditionally, and there's nothing we can do to change this. All we have to do is have a willing spirit and make first contact. At that level, all parts of our life journey are sacred and fuel for soul evolution. We're intimately Gabriel told me that I could die if I wished to, but if I wanted to stay, they would give me a helper. And they gave me a choice. Like, they didn't give me any hints on what kind of a helper. That was totally up to me. So after thinking about this for a couple of days, I decided on my gift and I asked for wisdom. Angels are incredibly merciful. This led to much challenge and inspiration, but throughout it all, I was never alone. I was able to complete a university degree as a straight A student in 2004, even though I have very poor reading comprehension. I have always been connected to my guides, even today. I work for Archangel Gabriel since then, from December 21st to March 21st each year, fulfilling missions and completing exercises for soul development. Then, about 2010, I started to get ET messages again. My gut told me that these beings were good, and I just knew that contact agreed with my pre-birth life agreements that I had set up before I was born. I also believe that I have extensive contact with these beings beyond my 3D body. My higher self makes contact with and sometimes without my awareness. Lucid dreams with remote viewing are a regular feature of my contact experience. Sometimes I get spontaneous knowings, and sometimes I get downloads. It takes seconds to receive a download, but it takes time to unwrap and synthesize the data. In 2012, I received the call to level up and notice Earth changes, physical, political, and spiritual. In 2013, I received a download and began using the Nubby Ball tool. In 2014, I received the rest of the Quantum Health Transformation download. In 2015, I became aware of some ongoing intergalactic work that I was doing. I did not travel there physically. I remained in my bed sleeping, but my consciousness was definitely transported to the big ship each night. There is a time differential. I was taken every night for about 3 months, but I experienced it for more like 3 years. Time is different there. They are not bound by rotation around a sun. There are times when I am also outside of my physical existence, where time and distance do not exist. So it makes sense that I was returned before waking up in the morning. Even though I experienced being gone for weeks, I have no physical proof, but I do have some very vivid memories. After this, I began to do more research and found out about Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 movement via YouTube back in 2015, and I was greatly encouraged by Paul Hellyer and the Disclosure Conference about the same time. As a result, I started to meditate and reach out for more contact. My real-time sightings. I want to talk a little bit about my real-time sightings. This has nothing to do with the Intergalactic Resettlement program. Well, it might, but not that I'm really aware of. So I used to live on Vancouver Island, and I would frequently drive up and down Island. And this one time I was headed north, and the water was off to the right-hand side. And I noticed there was 2 headlights over the water. I pulled my car over and I looked out, and my headlights would have now been facing the headlights I saw over the water. And I tried to make out if there was a landmass or something that would be carrying a vehicle that would actually be adjacent to where I was driving. And I didn't see anything. It was too dark. So I pulled out and I continued to head up Island. And here the 2 headlights followed me for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And first of all, it couldn't have been a car, because the car would have had to be driving sideways for the 2 headlights to be facing me. And the next time I drove down Island, I stopped at that spot. I consider that a UFO. Now, I don't know if it was, an ET UFO, but to me, it was a UFO. Another time I saw a cigar-shaped craft. I was looking up into the sky, and it was, like I said, cigar-shaped, and it looked gray, and it looked sort of metallic. And to my right-hand side of it, of the tip, suddenly a circular rainbow appeared. And the rainbow came out of the circle and engulfed the cigar-shaped craft. and thought that was pretty cool. And I also think that was a UFO and possibly an ET kind of UFO, but I don't know. Then many times I have seen saucers at dusk in the clouds, and the best time to see them is when the sun is just about to hit the horizon, when there's not a lot of chemtrailing, but there, those nice, natural, fluffy white clouds, a few of them in the sky. And as the sun goes down towards the horizon, I guess there's a shift in the way the light interacts with the clouds. And you can often see saucer-shaped ET, I think they're ET, or let's just call them UFOs, hanging and hiding out in the clouds. And I thought that was also very cool. And I have seen orbs of all sizes. Now, most of the orbs that I see, in fact, except for one, they all look kind of two-dimensional, like circles, and they're kind of a little bit opaque, but almost transparent. And one time I saw a different kind of orb. It looked like a comet. And again, I was driving up the island highway. This time, though, it was just after supper time, and it was well lit. And I saw something that appeared like a fiery comet, and it was like gold and copper and sparkly, and it had a tail. And it came in, and it just went behind the mountain tip beside me. I don't know how far up the mountain. It's hard to tell when you're driving. You have to have your eyes on the road. So I wasn't sure. And I don't know how to describe the relative size of the orb. But anyway, it sort of looked like it was a comet that crashed on the top of the mountain. But there was no noise, no vibration, no dust cloud, nothing. It just disappeared there. And I thought that was really cool. When I got home, I did research on the internet to see if any comets had been reported or anything like this. And there was nothing. So I guess I'm the only one that saw it. So I get a funny feeling before I see a craft. And it's like that urge that you get when you want to look at the clock and you see it's 11:11. How many of you have had that happen? And it's kind of like a little funny feeling before it happens. So it might be an interconnection of consciousness. You just happen to look up at the right moment. And I believe they want to be seen. Otherwise, why would they use lights at night? I'm sure they've got the tech to fly in the dark. So now I want to introduce you to Bob the Gray. Bob has been my friend since about 2014, and he appears as a stereotypical gray. Although I've never seen him physically face-to-face, he appears in my imagination, and we maintain a fairly consistent connection. So I've included this image here. It doesn't look exactly like him, but it's close enough for illustration purposes. Bob answers my questions and reveals details about the Intergalactic Resettlement program by releasing my memories and by facilitating remote viewing sessions with me. And I actually strongly, I don't know for a fact, but I strongly feel or intuit that Bob is behind me getting the gig that I got on the big ship. I think he has something to do with that. I feel like he's higher up than the beings I interrelated with and had experiences with on the Intergalactic Resettlement program, but he seems to be maybe a little, less is not a good word, but I'm going to use it just for illustration, a little bit less than the angels. I don't know if there's a hierarchy. I'm just trying to describe it in Earth terms for you. So Bob has a sense of humor. Recently, I was taking a deeper look at him through the portal of my imagination, and he superimposed a great big toothy human smile onto his face, which took me by total surprise and made me laugh out loud. Bob has revealed to me that he and his kind wear contact lenses to mask their true eyes, because for them, direct eye-to-eye contact is intimate, sacred, and personal. Bob showed me that they use something that looks like a lounge or commonly seen as a dentist chair to make contact. He doesn't have a name, but we agreed that I can call him Bob. And what's interesting about Bob is his appropriation of our 20th century culture, including a passion for Frank Sinatra and Michael Jackson. He's also what I call a snappy dresser. He wears black slacks and a black turtleneck sweater, and sometimes he wears a fedora just for fun. So maybe all ETs don't have a a sense of humor, but breaks the tension and makes it ever so easy to connect with him. So now I want to move on to my pre-birth agreements. My life experiences prepared me for my work as a quantum mechanic. I am a wide receiver, and my contacts include interdimensionals, ETs, angels, and more. I can tap into whatever group or being has a job for me to do. I'm not tied to any one specific off-world group or race, and I'm available to help out as needed by various groups and beings from many interdimensional realities. Basically, I work for Holy Spirit, also known as Universal Consciousness. I believe that our health, psychology, and spirituality must be upskilled and evolved in order to take part in full contact. And that leads to my higher purpose. My higher purpose is to anchor in the divine feminine and to help collapse, correct, and initiate new timelines. For those of us who are doing this, the work is mostly unseen and unappreciated by our fellow Earth citizens. I work closely with what I will call the morphogenic field. Some people see it as a holographic field, and I call the field, which we are all embedded in, Mother, Father, and also the living Earth, and also my higher self on an 8th dimensional level, and my soul team, which includes ETs, interdimensionals, angels, elementals, ancestors, and disembodied Earth people, and possibly other beings. The ET realms overlap with the angelic realms, and both operate within the love harmonic of the omniverse. So now getting on to the intergalactic program. I'm just going to have a sip of water here. How did the Intergalactic Resettlement program start and by who? Okay, so I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but it is what it is. This context is not nuts and bolts, and it's not religious. It's sociological, and it's cultural. There is a group, a federation of planets, that deals with our world leaders, but this is not that group. They started out as a rogue group who knew that negotiating with world leaders of dystopian planets rarely benefit the private citizens, so they work on an energy system. It's spiritual. This is an ongoing program. They are not part of the secret space program, and this is only one of many possible resettlement programs. The ET members of this group are unnamed, and we don't speak English. There are many different ET groups, and as far as I know, my group is not affiliated with any other group. Ship politics are anarchist and autonomous in nature. Intergalactic Resettlement has been around for thousands of years, assisting many beings who face extinction-level events. This program is not specific to Earth. These beings also offer those of us who are ready a training program involving scientific expeditions to planets that will eventually be resettled. The planets that we visit have everything in perfect balance except for humanoids. So this is the important part. They are not here to rescue us or solve our problems. They are waiting for us to solve our own problems, come into power, and begin a new way to operate here on Earth. We will eventually stand up for our personal and collective sovereignty and reject 3D constructs. Evolving Earth people are welcome to make contact. These beings make themselves available for near extinction and extinction level events to provide extraction. Planets are not the safest place to be. Extinction cycles are common. This is the 5th reseeding of Earth. If we are faced with an extinction level event, we may be taken, and if so, we can take our loved ones with us if they wish to accompany. Further, we can also personally participate should we as a collective not come into our power and make the changes necessary to create heaven on Earth. Those who take responsibility for their own evolution will be offered a chance to resettle because they've got skills and ways of being that have value to resettlement. Most people who have contact experiences similar to mine don't remember, but we are remembering more now. The call has been put out there, and many are recovering their experiences. We can develop our own psychic skills and call in our guides, angels, and other truth providers for assistance. We must learn to do this. We can connect once we can hold sufficient frequency, which also means leveling up or ascension or our evolution. So what is the purpose of this program? They offer a pre-settlement program, a resettlement program, and immigration to space life aboard city ships. There are also exopolitical ambassadorship positions, which may include downloading your Earth experiences into their data bank system. As an ambassador, I also give reports and input from the human perspective. They value my perspective. These programs have been going on for thousands of years, and the resettlement program was set up because planets, as I mentioned, go through cycles, and sometimes they're not safe places to live. Natural disasters that destroy humanoid populations can include diseases, both man-made and natural, planetary changes and planetary evolution, culling, or the re-terraforming of a planet. This group is not involved in any of these intrusive processes. When a planet is re-terraformed, it has everything we would expect to see on a healthy planet, including the animals, etc., in perfect balance. But as I mentioned several times, and for a good reason during this presentation, there are no humanoids. Everything is there for optimal success: food, plant medicines, and opportunities for education. In the past, Earth was seeded several times by intergalactic resettlement programs. Off-world resettlement is done very differently than the way we do it here on Earth, and I saw no evidence of colonialism. Sometimes humanoids are created and placed on worlds as intergalactic genetic experiments, but more often, and as my experience shows, beings start over and resettle because they want to. Sometimes their planets become inhospitable, or a social experiment needed a place to unfold, or something where the humanoids are already highly evolved and choose to be relocated. Often, temporary settlements are set up for diagnostic and training purposes, requiring hands-on or physical experience. In this case, a quarantine is set up around the camp or the training area to protect the ecosystems and maintain balance and integrity. I did not personally interact with any wild animal species while participating in this work. I expected that these beings would be so advanced that they wouldn't need to do hands-on stuff, but I found out that they want us to have that real physical experience so we can learn about the different worlds for ourselves. I don't think they need it, but we do. We were split into teams, issued tablets, which were pre-programmed to do specific jobs, and then we went down to do the real hands-on work. I felt like I was very physical during these experiences. I didn't feel like I was disembodied or astral traveling or remote viewing. I've also had some experiences doing the ambassador work where I did not feel like I was in my body. But this was really a physical experience with eating foods and doing work. The planets we explored had everything needed for life and all kinds of life as we would expect, except no humanoids yet. Our mission involved finding the very best way to resettle without disrupting the harmony of the biosphere. While on the planets, we live very simply. Each group takes turns designing and putting up the habitat, small huts, cabins, and sometimes tents that we shared. Everything was very plain and utilitarian. Dwellings were made from the natural materials we found in the area. And as mentioned before, we had to keep ourselves isolated from the animals. We ate local raw foods from the planet. I remember one time I was helping unload one of the small anti-grav pickup trucks, which had an assortment of wild and raw fruits and vegetables from the area. We took our meals together in a large tent, and my favorite vegetable looked like a large, fresh, raw fig. as big as a watermelon, with a slight sweetness and was very juicy. It was soft and it was easy to digest. We are all vegan while we're up on the big ship, but omnivore options are available once we settle on a specific planet permanently. All plants and animals used as food are raised with love before slaughter. This might sound strange, but we make arrangements with the plants and animals that we plan to eat and recognize their sacred gift. Also, we will not be gluttons if we raise and we love our food. As above, so below. There is no one way of eating that makes sense to all beings. There's 3 primary purposes for all food, whether it's plant or animal: to reproduce, to add to the balance and the harmony of the planet, and to serve as food for other beings. From one mission, I remember bathing in natural springs that issued forth from rock cavities in the side of the mountain. We were relaxing after a busy day of work, and as we relaxed in the water, there were 2 beautiful moons in the sky. It was very peaceful and very enjoyable. Since the moons were not superimposed, we tried to guess which one was closer. One was larger and it rotated very slowly, and the other one was smaller and it moved very fast. Overall, the work was not that interesting. We just gathered data, scanned plants and bugs, etc. Later, when we're back on the big ship, the data was integrated into a holographic representation, and we used it to learn more about how the biological systems on the planet were interconnected and interdependent.